One of the most misunderstood truths about empathy is this: the ability to feel others deeply often comes with the ability to influence others deeply. Most people hear the word empath and imagine someone gentle, selfless, almost saint-like. They picture a person who senses pain, offers comfort, and naturally chooses compassion. But emotional sensitivity does not automatically equal moral character. Those are two separate things. The capacity to understand emotion and the decision to use that understanding ethically are not the same. In psychology, we often separate empathy into different forms. There is emotional empathy, where you feel what another person feels. There is cognitive empathy, where you understand what another person feels without necessarily sharing it. That distinction matters. A person may know exactly what hurts you, what motivates you, what you fear, and what you long for. They may read your expressions, your pauses, your tone shifts, even the emotions you are trying to hide. That skill can heal relationships, or it can become a weapon. Think about how influence really works. Most manipulation is not loud or obvious. It rarely begins with threats. It begins with insight. The manipulator studies emotional patterns. They learn what earns trust, what creates guilt, what triggers insecurity, what makes someone seek approval. A highly empathetic person can gather this information almost instinctively. They do not need charts or strategies. They can feel where the openings are. That is where the dark side begins. Someone who knows your loneliness may become the one person who always appears when you feel abandoned. Someone who senses your fear of rejection may withhold affection just enough to keep you chasing reassurance. Someone who understands your need to be seen may offer validation in carefully measured doses, making you dependent on their approval. This is not empathy as service. It is empathy as leverage. Philosophically, this reveals something important about human nature. Every strength contains a shadow version of itself. Intelligence can become deception. Courage can become recklessness. Discipline can become cruelty. And empathy, when detached from conscience, can become precision-guided manipulation. The same awareness that allows someone to comfort a wounded mind also allows them to exploit one. Many people miss this because they assume emotional language equals emotional sincerity. If someone says, "I know how you feel," we instinctively trust them. If someone mirrors our pain, we lower our defenses. If someone appears deeply attuned to us, we mistake that attunement for loyalty. But understanding a person is not the same as caring for a person. Some individuals study emotions the way a locksmith studies doors, not to protect the house, but to enter it. You may have met people like this. They always know what to say. They can calm conflict quickly, but they can also create it quietly. They seem incredibly perceptive, yet relationships around them become confusing, draining, and unstable. You leave conversations doubting yourself while admiring them at the same time. That contradiction is often a clue. When someone uses empathy ethically, you feel clearer after being with them. When they use it manipulatively, you feel smaller. So what should we do with this knowledge? First, stop judging people only by sensitivity. Sensitivity is a tool, not a virtue. Second, watch for consistency between emotional insight and moral behavior. Do they respect boundaries? Do they take accountability? Do they use what you shared in vulnerability against you later? Do they create freedom or dependency? And finally, examine yourself, because this warning is not only about others. Every one of us has moments when we know exactly what to say to gain advantage. We know how to trigger guilt, how to win sympathy, how to steer perception. The question is not whether we can influence. The question is whether we choose integrity when influence is available. Empathy becomes dangerous the moment understanding outruns character. There is another side to empathy that receives far less attention, and it is often more dangerous because it develops quietly. We are told that caring deeply for others is always noble, always healthy, always a sign of emotional maturity. But when a person repeatedly absorbs the pain of everyone around them, something begins to happen beneath the surface. Compassion without boundaries does not remain compassion forever. It can decay into bitterness. Many highly empathetic people become emotional containers for others. Friends come to them with chaos. Family members unload stress onto them. Coworkers bring drama, disappointment, frustration, and fear. Because the empath is skilled at listening and naturally attuned to emotional signals, they become the default place where everyone deposits their weight. At first, this feels meaningful. They feel useful, valued, even needed. But usefulness can be addictive when it replaces self-respect. Psychologically, the nervous system is not designed to carry endless secondhand suffering without consequence. Even if the pain does not belong to you, your body often responds as if it does. Stress hormones rise. Emotional fatigue builds. Mental bandwidth narrows. You begin recovering from problems you never created. This is one reason many empathetic people feel exhausted without understanding why. They think they are tired from life, when in reality they are tired from carrying lives. And here is where the shadow forms. When someone consistently gives emotional energy without restoration, resentment begins in subtle ways. It rarely announces itself openly. It appears first as irritation. A delayed text feels offensive. A small request feels heavy. Another person's tears feel inconvenient. The empath may still behave kindly on the outside, but internally they are becoming hostile. They start thinking, no one cares about me the way I care about them. That sentence is the birthplace of bitterness. Philosophically, this reveals a hard truth. Sacrifice that is chosen freely can be meaningful, but sacrifice that is expected eventually becomes anger. Human beings need reciprocity. Not perfect equality, but some sense that care moves in both directions. When a person becomes everyone's refuge while having no refuge of their own, the soul hardens. This bitterness often confuses people because it hides behind a caring identity. The person still sees themselves as compassionate, but their behavior changes. They become cynical. They withdraw suddenly. They judge others harshly for weakness they once comforted. They may explode over small things because the outburst is not about the moment, it is about years of accumulated emotional debt. You may have seen this in someone who says, "I'm done helping people." Usually that statement does not come from cruelty. It comes from depletion. It comes from someone who confused constant availability with love. They believed that being good meant being endlessly accessible. When reality proved otherwise, disappointment turned into contempt. There is also a deeper danger. Some empaths begin unconsciously needing broken people around them because rescuing others gives them identity. If everyone heals, who are they? If no one needs them, what value do they have? So they remain in cycles of chaos, then resent the very chaos they keep allowing. This is how martyrdom forms. Suffering becomes a personality. The solution is not to become cold, it is to become structured. Real compassion requires boundaries, rest, and selectivity. You are not obligated to process every emotion in the room. You are not required to answer every crisis call. You are not selfish for protecting your inner stability. In fact, the most sustainable kindness comes from people who know when to say no. Ask yourself an honest question. When you help others, are you giving from strength or from guilt? Are you supporting because it is wise or because you fear disappointing people? Those answers matter. Help offered from guilt drains. Help offered from clarity strengthens. A healthy empath does not absorb every storm. They learn to witness rain without becoming the flood. If you do not choose your limits, exhaustion will choose them for you. There is a pattern many empathetic people fall into, and it looks admirable from the outside while being destructive underneath. They become available to everyone except themselves. They show patience to strangers, loyalty to difficult people, forgiveness to repeat offenders, and understanding to those who offer little in return. Yet, when it comes to their own needs, they become dismissive, harsh, and absent. This is not virtue. It is imbalance disguised as goodness. A lack of boundaries is often mistaken for kindness. But boundaries are not walls, they are standards. They define where your responsibility ends and another person's begins. Without them, empathy becomes self-erasure. The person no longer helps from a place of choice. They help from compulsion. They cannot tell the difference between caring for someone and caring someone. Psychologically, this usually begins early. Many people who struggle with boundaries learned that harmony had to be earned. Perhaps love was conditional. Perhaps conflict felt dangerous. Perhaps being useful was the safest role available. So they became attentive to everyone else's moods, needs, and reactions. They learn to scan the room, anticipate tension, and fix problems quickly. As adults, this skill is praised. They are called generous, mature, dependable. But often beneath that praise is an unhealed belief. My value comes from what I do for others. That belief is expensive. When a person derives identity from rescuing, they attract those who enjoy being rescued. This is why highly empathetic people often find themselves in one-sided friendships draining family systems and romantic relationships built on emotional labor. They become the stable one, the understanding one, the forgiving one, the one who always stays. At first, this creates a sense of purpose. Eventually, it creates exhaustion. Philosophically, we might say they have confused love with surrender. Love respects the dignity of both people. Surrender sacrifices one person to preserve another. If one individual is always adapting, always apologizing, always overextending, the relationship is not balanced. It is organized around dysfunction. And here is the hidden cost: self-neglect rarely feels dramatic. It feels normal. The empathetic person may not notice they are abandoning themselves because they are busy being praised for generosity. They ignore fatigue. They postpone their own goals. They tolerate disrespect because they understand the other person's trauma. They excuse patterns because they can see the pain behind the behavior. Insight becomes permission. But understanding why someone behaves badly does not require accepting bad behavior. That distinction changes lives. You can recognize someone's wounds without volunteering to become one of them. You can have compassion for a person's past while refusing to be harmed in the present. Mature empathy does not cancel accountability. Many people with weak boundaries fear that saying no will make them selfish or cruel. In reality, saying no often reveals who valued you and who merely used your access. Boundaries do not destroy healthy relationships. They expose unhealthy ones. The people who respected you as a human being adjust. The people who depended on your lack of limits resist. There is also an internal shift that must happen. The empathetic person has to stop treating themselves as the least important person in every room. Self-respect is not narcissism. Rest is not laziness. Privacy is not rejection. Declining a demand is not betrayal. These are basic functions of psychological health. Ask yourself a difficult question. If you offered yourself the same patience you offer others, how different would your life look? If you defended your time the way you defend everyone else's feelings, what would change? If you stopped over-explaining every boundary, who would remain? Healthy empathy is selective, conscious, and paired with standards. It helps where help is meaningful, not where help is endlessly consumed. It gives without disappearing. The person who belongs to everyone often ends up belonging to no one, including themselves. Protect your limits, or you will slowly become absent from your own life. After examining the darker expressions of empathy, manipulation, bitterness, self-neglect, we arrive at the final and most important truth. Empathy itself is not the problem. Unmanaged empathy is the problem. Like intelligence, charisma, or power, empathy becomes constructive or destructive depending on the discipline surrounding it. This is why true empathy requires balance and self-awareness. Many people treat empathy as if it were automatically virtuous. If someone feels deeply, we assume they are wise. If someone is sensitive, we assume they are trustworthy. But emotional sensitivity is only raw material. It tells us that a person notices signals, responds strongly, and can tune into human experience. What they do with that sensitivity is another matter entirely. Without self-awareness, empathy can become chaos wearing noble language. Self-awareness means knowing your motives, your patterns, and your limits. It means asking uncomfortable questions. Am I helping because it is useful or